Hey guys, we are back for Bandcamp Dailies number 20, I think it is. I don't remember. Yesterday was yesterday evening was my big climbing the tower video, and I survived because I'm a professional. By the way, I should have said in the video, do not try this at home, but I forgot to mention that. Anyway, I had a lot of fun doing that video, actually. It's very fun. Like I said in the video, I hadn't been up the tower in over a year, and it's getting me really excited because I want to add a couple new TV antennas down here. And so I'm getting pretty excited about that. I'll make a video about that as well. So, but as for tonight, so we have some listens today on the Bandcamp page. We have some old school listens. So someone went way back in time, back to the year 1999 and the year 2000, a long time ago. And they listened to, so we got 4 listens today. So 3 of these first 3, these are from, I forget what the album's called. Is it, no. Oh, Cassette Jams. That's what it's from. Yeah. Okay. All right. So we have 3 songs from here, and then we have 1 song from another album, but it's a very old album. So we're going to listen to all of them in full as well. I'm going to try and keep this a little short. I say that every single time and it never happens. But we'll see if we can do that. So we have Kansas City Shred 3. I think this appears in order. So that's this one. And then we have It's Supposed to Be Sad. It's the next one. And then one after that is One Hand Tap, right? And that's a little further down the track list. Where the heck is it? One Hand Tap. I can't read this. Here it is right here. All right. So with that being said, here's the album art. This is not the actual album art. This never had album art. This is just a compilation. So basically, back in these days, started in 1997, my grandma gave me her old stereo, and it consisted of, it had a tape deck. It also had like an amp, I guess. Is that, I forget. It's been a long time since I used one of the, well, I mean, I have one right behind me. I don't know what the pieces are called, though. And it had speakers. I don't know. I think it even had a CD player as well. But I got that in 97. And, you know, with the tape deck, it had 2. I've actually shown the tape deck on one of my videos. What the hell video? Oh, it was the Nerdy Girl episode. I brought in my grandma's old tape deck, and I had it in the video. That's very funny. I just remembered that. But what was it? Yeah, so in that tape deck, it had 2 inputs, 2 microphone inputs, 2 quarter-inch microphone inputs, and you could record onto cassette tapes by doing that. And so I started playing guitar in 1995, and this was in 97 when my grandma gave me the stereo. And I noticed the inputs, and I bugged my dad to get me a microphone. And he ended up getting me one of those $20 microphones from Radio Shack. And that's when I started recording. And I have a literal bag of cassette tapes in the back room of stuff that I recorded on from 1997 until the year 2001, I think, is when I stopped, or 2000, because then I started recording onto computer. But I have a bag in the back. And actually, because I didn't have enough cassette tapes, I ended up re-recording over stuff I had already recorded on, which is unfortunate, but that's what I did back then. And so that's when I was living in Newfoundland. I started doing that, and that's the first band I ever was in, actually band. It was this guy he would come over. I don't really have to talk about that now. I can talk about that in the future, but fast forward 2 years, 1999, I end up moving back to Sudbury, Ontario, and I get back in touch with, so basically these songs involve 2 other guys, me and 2 other guys. These Crippler demos, those are all me. And then the Kansas City Shred, this is, I believe, Ken, my friend Ken, and me, K and C. And then these ones right here, Donkey Kong Country, this is Dave, Ken, and Chris, DKC. And then this one here, District of Columbia, D and C, that is Dave and Chris. So that's what these titles represent. It's basically just who plays on the songs. I lost my train of thought. Oh, okay. So I moved back to Sudbury, Ontario. And so I knew Ken from grade 8. I moved to Sudbury, Ontario in 1995. I lived there until 1997. And so 1995, I was in grade 8. And Ken went to my school, and we were friends. He played bass. I don't think we did music back then because I had literally just started playing guitar. So I was horrible at it. And I'm assuming he was playing bass. I don't remember though. Anyway, I moved to St. John's, Newfoundland in 1997. I get super into guitar because I don't know anyone. And I start recording onto cassette tapes. And then I end up moving back to Sudbury, Ontario in 1999. That's when I was in grade 11, I believe. And so I moved back. I have the long hair going. I'm a huge music guy / burnout, I guess. and so I go back to the same high school that I was in grade 9. So I went to the one high school, Llewellyn, in grade 9. I move away, and then I come back. Oh, it would have been grade 12 then. Yeah, so I came back in grade 12. And so I reconnect with Ken. He's playing bass. And then, so I mentioned this class. We were in a class. I think Ken was in the class. I don't remember, to be honest. But this was a class that also featured Jessica Anderson. I mentioned her in a previous episode because her name came up in some lyrics. I don't remember what episode that is, but we were all in the same class together, and Dave was also in that class. And that's when I met Dave. I don't remember what the class was, but we were all sitting around next to each other, the three of us guys and then Jessica. And so that's where we met Dave. And Dave played drums. He also lived very, very close to me. And so we became best friends. And, I would go to his house because he had drums. And we would record a bunch of stuff there. And then there are also times when he would bring his drums over to my parents' house. Like if they went, I don't know, if they were gone for the weekend for some reason. Like there were a couple of those instances when that happened, and he brought his drums over. And that's where all this stuff comes from. Except I think the District of Columbia stuff with just Dave and me, I believe that was recorded at Dave's mom's house. And then the stuff with Ken was definitely recorded at my parents' house. And yeah, all the stuff with Ken was recorded at my parents' house. So I think that's the intro. So there's like a few different recording sessions going on here. I think this, the Kansas City stuff with just Ken and me, I believe that was like the first one ever. So I don't know what happened. Basically my parents and then my siblings, that they went away for the weekend or something. And so I'm like, hey Dave, bring your drums over, so we can jam at my place, and, we can drink and smoke weed and, just hang out and record ourselves. And we could also invite some people over. And that's what we did. Yeah. That's what we did for this. And I think it was the next day when Ken and I recorded. So, because Dave wasn't there. I don't remember what Dave was doing at the time. It's quite possible that Ken and I skipped school and we recorded. That's a possibility. Ken played bass. He could also play guitar. He plays drums on some of these songs. And I also play drums on some of them as well, but neither of us were drummers. I certainly wasn't at all. I don't even know if I've ever played drums before. He was better than me. And so, yeah, we're going to listen to Kansas City Shred 3 first. So before I start the song, so this is Ken on drums, me on guitar. I don't know if we were high when we recorded this. It's quite possible. Honestly, probably. So this was in the year 1999, I believe. How old would I have been? I would have been 17, 16, sorry. So, and so what I used to like doing back then, so I think at that time I was fully into death metal and, Slayer as well. And so I used to like playing along to albums on guitar. So I would put in a CD, my CD player, crank up the volume, and I would play along to the CD with my guitar. And so there were several Slayer albums where I would do that. And the thing about Slayer, they have these guitar solos, which are sort of, they're not very melodic. They're just sort of all over the place. And I would try and sort of mimic that without knowing what I was doing. I wasn't like hitting actual notes or anything like that. I was just like moving my fingers really fast. And I think I got pretty good at that. And so that's what I'm doing in this song. This was also back when I used a whammy bar. By the way, this is all improvised. I'm assuming that was obvious, but I forgot to mention that. Yeah, so basically we probably smoked a joint and then we came in and we just started screwing around, improvising. It was very fun. I can still remember doing this because it was very, very fun day. Remember the weather was very nice. This part I really like. And then we get some pretty intense feedback coming up. I don't know how that happened, but it was very nice to hear. It's coming up. Okay, so the guitar stopped. There's a little bit of drum thing that goes on, and then it goes right into the next song. It's supposed to be sad. So I clipped the song. But basically this little drum thing here, so I don't know if anyone knows this, except for me. I'm assuming Ken knows too. But that is actually what he's doing there. Is the song From Skin to Liquid by Cannibal Corpse. That's the beginning of that song. There's I'm not playing it. I'm not playing the song, but he's doing the drum part and like the rhythm part at the very beginning. It's a very cool song. I would play it, but I'd probably get a copyright notice. But check it out, From Skin to Liquid by Cannibal Corpse. It's instrumental, so there's no guttural vocals. But that's what he's doing there on the drums. Okay, so this song, it's quite long, 6:42. This is a song that I wrote, actually. Now, Ken didn't know the song. I don't think he knew that I wrote it. I sort of wrote it. This was something I played every now and then. I never released it because it was sort of released twice. Dave and I played it actually as well down here. Which one did they listen to, by the way? They listened to the Kansas City one. Okay. This was the original version. This was the first recording of it. This was just a song that I played by myself occasionally. And if I remember correctly, it was inspired by the Pantera song Floods. Another very good song, by the way. If I remember correctly. Yeah. 100%. I just remembered that before I was doing the video, that it was inspired by that Pantera song. And so I knew how the song went because I had written it, but Ken didn't. But he played along, and it ended up being... I really liked the recording. By the way, I didn't talk about the cover art. I'll just do that right now. So this cover art really doesn't have anything to do with all the songs because I started recording these, or these songs were recorded in, well, except for these down here. Yeah, I guess they do relate to these tracks down here. These tracks were recorded in Newfoundland by myself, the Crippler demo ones. But this is after we won the championship, the hockey championship in 1998. So this was NLHA. I think that is Newfoundland Labrador Hockey Association. Provincial Bantam winners, 1998. Played at St. John's. That's what it says. I was the assistant captain. This is my first year on the team. You can see I have my blue gloves and pants because the previous year I was playing on the Sudbury Lakers, and that's what their colors were. So I do not look very good. I sort of look, if any doomers are watching this is like, what's that texture called? Fire blue? That's a blue and red texture, very ugly texture, but this is what I look like. I feel like I look fairly similar now. I had a different photograph, and I feel like I look fairly similar. 1998, how old would I have been then? 15. I would have been 15 in this photograph. I remember taking this photograph too because basically the season ended and then they wanted to take our photos after the season. And so we had to go to the rink with our gear and put it on just for the photos. So we didn't play hockey or anything. They just had us put our gear on. And so I didn't put any tape on my shin pads, so they're just hanging loose. That's the one thing I remember about this. And I still do have this photo in the back somewhere because I'm pretty sure I either scanned it or I took a photo of the photo. I don't remember. Good times, though, playing hockey. Good times. Yeah, so what I wanted to say is I don't really have photos of me very many, especially back in these days. So I didn't really have anything that related with the three of us. So I just used this. Like I really like the beats that he plays. He's not a drummer, but he did very well. Okay, so this part of the song on guitar, this riff is actually from another song, I believe, from Eternal Slumber. So because this song wasn't fully written. It was just something I sort of improvised and I jammed on by myself. I ended up adding this riff from Eternal Slumber into it, and it ended up fitting. Okay. I probably should have done this earlier, but it's I stomp on the distortion, so it's gonna get a little heavy now. Okay, that was very strange. Because the song ended at 6:32, but it says it's 6:42. I don't know what that's all about. Maybe that was just some sort of a seeking error. I really like that song though. By the way, the way the song ended, the tape cut out. We filled up the tape and it just stopped recording. Okay, so now we're on to One Hand Tap. Here it is right here. So this okay, this was a different session. So this was Dave. I'm pretty sure it's just Dave and me in this one. Dave's on drums, I'm on guitar. Yeah, so Ken was here, but he wasn't playing at the time. I don't know why. It's quite possible he was rolling a joint or something like that. Just saying. And so back then, we had a thing where I don't think he had an amp, a bass amp. So he would bring his bass and he would plug it into my guitar amp. So my amp had like two inputs, and I could plug my guitar in and he could plug his bass in and we could play at the same time. So that's what we used to do sometimes, and we did it for this. However, I was sort of limited to not using a guitar pedal, I think. Yeah, because then the bass would also be super distorted as well. So for this, I'm not using a guitar pedal. I'm just using the amp sounds. But yeah, so this was another session. So Dave brought his drums over again, and so this one I remember we in the basement of my parents' house there was this room. It was like a storage room or something, and there were no windows. And we put the drums in there, and so it was kind of interesting. If I remember correctly, Dave and I recorded the drums for one of our, I just remembered about this, one of the Bagless songs. In that room, he recorded the drums in that room, and then I recorded the guitars later. So that's kind of interesting, I guess. I still have my whammy bar. Yeah, so what I'm doing, the one hand tap, I'm just using my fretting hand. I'm not even picking. I guess I'm using the whammy bar, but I'm not picking the notes. I'm just using my fretting hand to make the sounds. So when the riff starts again, this is my favorite part of the song because I'm just way too obnoxious with the hammer-on pull-offs. And when I start the song again, it's more, I don't know if subtle is the right word, but yeah, I'm more laid back. If I would have done that for the entire song, it would have been a lot better. But I was very obnoxious teenager. By the way, a lot of bad notes in all of these songs. I was just tuning, but Dave was playing some cool beats, so that part's interesting because of the drumming. All right, so that is it for Cassette Jams. Now we're going to go to The Lost Valley of Dissection. This is from my Ancient Tales from the Forest of Death demo. Oh, by the way, something I forgot to say. We recorded these songs on cassettes, but we never released them. I'm pretty sure I showed them, like we all listened to it, but like we never released it. It was just something that I always had. And I still have all of these recordings somewhere on my cassettes. I'd rather have them digitally though, which I do. But yeah, I still have these cassette tapes in the back. All right, so Ancient Tales from the Forest of Death. Lost Valley of Dissection. This was my very first song. So, like I said, I moved back to Sudbury, Ontario, 1999, and I was jamming with Dave and Ken. And then I started. I kept writing music on my own, but there were always no drums because I didn't know how to play drums. And Dave wasn't a metal drummer; he was more of like a rock and a groove. Groove, is that what I wanted to say? Drummer. And so I was sort of, I didn't really know what to do. And then Ken actually he had this program on his computer called Virtual Drummer. I think I mentioned it here. Ken was an Apple guy. So Virtual Drummer was for his Apple computer. And it was a really cool program. You sort of arranged the beats. It was like a grid. It was very cool. Awesome. And we eventually figured out that there was a test version for Windows. And so we downloaded it because I had a Windows computer. And but there were some bugs in the program. I can do a Virtual Drummer video later. However, I was able to. It was a very easy program to use for programming drums. And so I did that. I programmed the drums. That was my first time programming drums as well. So, and I had not been a drummer at all. So that was kind of strange. I remember programming some drums and I showed Ken and he gave me some pointers like, oh no, you should do it this way. And so that was helpful. And what else? And also, so yeah, he was a little more savvy than I was. Not just a little, he was a lot more savvy than I was in terms of various things. One being the drum programming and also with recording onto a computer. So I'd not done that before. We had always just recorded onto my tape deck. But so I ended up getting cool at it way back in the day and in the year 2000. And Ken knew how to use it. I don't know why. But he knew how to use it, and he showed me how to use it. But at this time, I did not know how to use it. And so he came over, and we were in my bedroom, and he had me. I had already programmed the drums for the song. And so the one thing about that Virtual Drummer test version for Windows, you couldn't export it as a WAV file. Like you couldn't export your drums. There was no way to do it. So what we had to do was, I think at that time, I exported it I hooked up my tape deck to my computer and then I recorded it onto a cassette. And then I lined the cassette audio back into my computer to create a WAV file of it. So it's kind of convoluted, but it worked. And so we had the drum file, and then he sort of manned the controls while he recorded me playing guitar, so playing the song. And so, yeah, I played the song all the way through in a full take. I think there were 2 guitar tracks, and then there's also a guitar solo. So, and then he mixed the song, and then that was the song. And then, if I remember correctly, I put it on a cassette tape. Actually, I'm pretty sure, yeah, there are some samples in this song as well. So I guess he recorded everything, and then he left, and then I added some samples to it. I started to get familiar with the program, with Cool Edit, and I was able to add some samples to it. I probably found them on the internet, on some website, old school website from year 2000. And then I had this file, this mix down, this final file, and I ended up putting it on cassette tape because I had a Walkman back then. So whenever I was walking, which was often, I'd always be listening to music. And so I always had this tape with this song on it. And I remember one day it was me and Ken were walking somewhere, and this guy from school, he was driving, and he picked us up. And he was a guitar player. I remember way back in grade 8, he went to the same school as us. He was Ken, I think, was Finnish, and same with this other guy. I talked about how many Finnish people there are in Sudbury, especially in the area that I was in and the school that I went to in grade 8. Like half the people there were Finnish. And so fast forward, this is grade 12, and we had all gone to school together in grade 8 and then into high school, though I was gone for a couple of years, but I came back. Anyway, he picks us up. I had the cassette tape, and the guy who picked us up, he was notorious he was a guitar player. And I remember in grade 8, back in music class, he played guitar, and there was this other guy in the class who played drums. They played a rendition of a Collective Soul song. I forget what it's called. Gel, I think is what it's called. They're one of their popular songs from back in the day. They did a cover of that in music class. It was very good. He was a very good guitarist. I don't think he knew that I play guitar, like at all. I guess I had started playing guitar back then in grade 8, but I was horrible. So he didn't know I played guitar back then. Anyway, fast forward, he picks us up. I have this cassette. Ken's like, hey, Timo, that's his name. Check this out. He puts the cassette in, and it's like this death metal music, and then there's a guitar solo, and he had to he did like a double take, like, what, you play guitar? But I still remember that. It's kind of funny. All right, so let's listen to the song. By the way, this song never made it onto my first album. Was The Last Breath of the Dying from 2001. So this was intended to go on that album. I like a re-recording of it, but I ended up not adding it, I guess, because I didn't like it anymore. Same with this song, Eternal Slumber. This was supposed to go on the album as well, but it didn't. There is an Eternal Slumber on The Last Breath of the Dying, but it's a completely different song. I just reused the title. So these are sort of this was the Time of Death. So I eventually, the band name was Crippler back in the day when I was recording with these guys, and back when I was recording by myself. We weren't really a band. We just sort of jammed together. So there was really no reason for a name. I really wanted to be in a band, but we sort of just jammed together. And also Ancient Tales from the Forest of Death. That was originally going to be, I was writing back in Newfoundland in 97 and 98. I was writing a demo. It just had guitars, and that's what I recorded those Crippler demos. That's what they were for. And the title of that demo was supposed to be Ancient Tales from the Forest of Death, but I never ended up releasing it. And so I ended up reusing the title for this. So basically in 2000, I recorded these songs, Ken recorded this one. And I was sort of, I mentioned this before, I was part of a Napster chat room on the Unlord server, where people would talk about, underground metal and whatnot. So I was a part of that. And so I would share these songs on that chat room. So some people, I don't know if they still have the files, but these files did exist all the way back then. And some people did download them from me.
I can smell your fear. Was it worth it?
Okay, so that little intro right there, that is sort of a mixture of audio samples that I gathered from the internet, and I mixed them together. So the guy who's speaking, there are two different samples of the guy speaking, and they are from the movie Wishmaster. So the Wishmaster guy, he's got a very, very creepy and evil voice. Those movies are pretty cool, by the way. I don't remember if it was from the first or the second one. Either way, it's from the Wishmaster movies. I rewatched the first or a bunch of the Wishmasters, 1, 2, and 4. I rewatched them like not a year ago, several months ago, and it brought back a lot of memories. I'm pretty sure that last scream was Jennifer Love Hewitt from I Know What You Did Last Summer. Either that or I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, but it's definitely Jennifer Love Hewitt. So here's the guitar solo. So the thing with guitar solos, this one and the previous one that we listened to, it's all just improvised and it's just complete nonsense. I'm not actually doing anything. I'm just moving my fingers very quickly. And so that's something I used to do when I was younger. And then I got out of that and I'm sort of anti-guitar solo now. But it's kind of funny. Whoever listened to this song, they picked 2 songs where I'm playing guitar solos, and that's sort of something I don't do anymore. All right, there you have it. The Lost Valley of Dissection. Okay, so I said this was going to be a short video, and of course it's 48 minutes. Yeah, that's really short, isn't it, buddy? Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know how to make short videos. I don't know how to do it. Okay, so I think that's going to be it for the video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time in the next video. Bye.